Welcome to the Living Superhuman Fitness Podcast, where we take you inside our gym, CrossFit Palm Beach, each week. It's here that we are creating new superhumans every day, transforming people's lives, helping them reach a level of health they never knew possible. We strive to answer your most burning questions on fitness, health, nutrition, training, motivation, mindset, lifestyle, and more. If you have a question, please email us at info@crossfitpalmbeach.com. You can also learn more on our blog, livingsuperhuman.com. And if you have a moment, we'd love a review from you on iTunes. All right, it's time. Let's stop being average and start living superhuman. Hey guys, welcome to the Living Superhuman Fitness Podcast. My name is Andrew Frezza, and I am joined today by
Coach Robbie,
Coach Katie,
Coach Greg. And today we're going to be talking about the death of RX and why we're changing the labels of scaled RX and RTG and bringing in a new
era.
Season, new era, yeah.
The death of an era.
right?
So we're going to kind of run down, first of all, what some of the issues we found in the past with the scaled RX and RTG, where we felt limited, where we felt like it was giving off maybe the wrong approach to the members, and then what the new terminology is going to be, what the similarities that will be to the scaled RX and RTG, and then how that will allow us to have more flexibility and make it a little bit different in the future. So it's not just a changing of the names, but it will actually be something that you guys will see differences beyond that. So let's start with the scaled, the RX and RTG, kind of the old system, and we've had this since we've been around for the last 6 years. CrossFit kind of starts with the scaled and RX. They still use scaled and RX in the open, but what are some of the issues that you guys have seen with those terms and those labels?
I think the biggest issue is the necessity to do exactly what it says, no matter what my skill level is, what my actual capability is. RTG, we always says, is road to the games, and we've thrown it around numerous times. There's very few people going to the games. You know, like who's going to be there, what's going on.
Not even in this gym.
Right, exactly. The percentage of people that make it to the games to go to the regionals, it's like, so that, right, yeah, go figure. Well, we're gonna, at the end of it, we're going to be.
One of every 4 people
right?
go to the games.
Yeah, just not us, right? Yeah, well, exactly. And then just so you get them in there, and then, you know, even for an RX workout, you know, it might just be out of your threshold in your region, but like they feel like they have to do it. So you, as a coaching standpoint, you get into this headbutting competition where it's like, I think you should scale the weight here, or I think you should scale down here, and they take it as an insult. I have to do RX today. I am RX. I have to do this, and it's not really probably what's in your best interest for that.
And then just the negative connotation of, oh, I'm a scaled athlete and I forever will be, and you know, maybe that is the case, and that's fine. Like you know, nobody needs to be striving for this intangible goal, kind of like what he was saying. So just removing the negative connotation, even though it's kind of the ubiquitous term, CrossFit, you know, worldwide, everyone does use these terms, but you know, I feel like it's kind of progressive to go with a different approach that's more relatable to people and their goals.
And I felt like scaled was always used as this qualifier of why your workout wasn't a good workout. Because if a coach would come by and, wow, you really crushed that workout, and then the first thing out of their mouth is, well, I scaled the pull-ups. And I'm like, that didn't make it a less good workout. It didn't make it a less worthwhile workout. It didn't make it less successful. In fact, you probably moved a lot better through the workout because you chose to go that route. And it's hard when you hear that qualifier and you just watch someone push themselves for 15, 10, 20 minutes and get a great workout out of it, and they're like, yeah, but I only scaled.
Right.
I'm like, you didn't only scale, you gave yourself a better workout.
Yeah, but I scaled. It's heartbreaking as a coach because you're so proud of them, and you're coming there to give them that emotional support, like you said, you did such a great job. Yeah, but I scaled. What? Like, no, you did awesome. Exactly that. It's just really tough to get. It's just that mental, you know, perception of just what they think they did and what they think they didn't accomplish for the day based on a simple RX or a scaled word.
Yeah, we saw that a lot more when we had the whiteboard. That was kind of another change that happened not too long ago, which I think this is kind of an extension of that, is that like I don't know my score on the board because you know, I don't want to have, like I just did scaled like you guys said. So also kind of piggybacking on that, like some of the changes that, you know, we've made, like eliminating the whiteboard, changing from scaled RX and RTG, it's not that we felt like it was wrong when we had it, we just feel like it's not serving us any longer. And one of the reasons I feel that way is that there's a much bigger gap now between the new person who walks through our doors and the person who's a veteran. So when we were only open for 6 months, a veteran usually meant someone who's been doing CrossFit for 6 months. So part of that was our scaled RX and RTG wasn't quite as challenging. It has become more challenging over time. But then also there was a less percentage of people doing those things, scaled RX and RTG. Now if you walk into an 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. class or a 5 a.m. class, like you see a high percentage of people RXing or RTGing. You don't really do the math to say this person's been doing it for 5, 6, 7 years and has kind of earned their way to it. So there's this expedited process of getting people to that. In some ways it serves good, it's a competitive thing, it pushes people, but in most cases it kind of pushes people too early to the RX, too early to the RTG. And I don't think, you know, yes, we're changing the labels, that still will happen, but I think as a nature of using those terms, it kind of makes people think, you know, they say RX is prescribed, this is prescribed, it sounds like the thing that I should be doing, and we just don't feel that way anymore, and it takes time to get there.
Right, and even explaining that to people that you write workouts based on challenging the best people in the gym, like who is the highest level athlete. That's what the workout is prescribed to make sure that they get the stimulus that they need, because we can't water down a workout because they'll walk out the door. But by saying that, it gets flipped into, oh, so I'm not the best athlete because I've scaled. No, you shouldn't achieve those numbers. It's a goal to work towards, or something that would be really nice, but everybody has their level at some certain point. I've been there, I've done that. I've scaled workouts. I scale workouts because it's what's best for my body and what's suited for that day. There's a high level gymnastics skill in there. I shouldn't be doing that. Yes, I can, but is it gonna look good? Is it gonna be pretty? Is it gonna serve my body the best? Or am I gonna be tore up for 2 weeks, possibly hurt my shoulder, so now I can't train tomorrow?
It's also hard that the more our community and family grows here at this particular gym, I mean, you just have more heads. It's hard to categorize people into one of 3 categories too. Like if you have, you know, 50 people in the whole gym, 5 per class, it's a little bit easier to be like, all right, you should probably do this way, you should do that. And even that might be outdated. I think this is more of a progressive approach, but once you have 30 people in class, it becomes even more difficult to do that. And so you have to scrutinize a little bit harder.
And that's where these terms really kind of fail us, in the sense that right now they're levels of the same path, right? Scaled is below RX, RX is below RTG. The direction we want to go, we want to keep it all on the same path, where it's based more on goals and commitment level rather than based on are you strong enough to handle a heavier weight kind of a deal. So you know, that's kind of the direction that we're moving. Is there anything that you guys want to hit on in problems with the scaled RX and RTG before we kind of get into that?
Yeah, I think you touched on it a little bit about people moving to weights before they're ready. And I know it was something that when I first came in happened consistently. And people were like, oh, Katie went RTG, Katie went RTG. And what the reality was is I was not getting a good workout because it was taking me so long to move through those weights. Although I could physically move them and it was cool and impressive that I could move them, I was getting 2 rounds in a workout where people were getting 5. And it was one of those where it was this like, I did RTG. And in reality, I got so much less out of the workout. And I remember there was a workout that was a wall ball and running workout. And the RTG weight on wall balls was a 20-pound ball. And I'm like, yeah, I can do a 20-pound ball. And Zach sat me down and said, I want you to use this lower weight ball, and I want you to run as fast as you can every single round and get 6 or 7 rounds. And that was my best workout in months, because for the first time I like had to check my ego at the door, put it to the side and go, I'm gonna get more out of this workout here. And that was really a defining moment for me to start going, you know what? The weight's gotta go down for me to actually get better at CrossFit. And that was a really big thing, and it's something I still notice now is people are moving weights because they can, as opposed to they should. So.
It's exactly that, and then you acquire so much strength, volume training. A lot of the stuff of moving faster and getting better at stuff is mastery of the technique, mastery of a certain weight, and being able to turn that over. But like, if I move 155, but I only move it 10 times, you know, per poundage, if you want to get into like geek squat kind of stuff, but you move 105, but you move it 60 times, like who got more weight and volume and stronger because the muscles were taxed more because they had to move more poundage, but it's frowned upon because it's 105 and then that's 155. Like that's awesome, and exactly that. Are you getting a good workout? That's what you come here for.
I think this is also going to open up like a gateway to just educating our member, our regular member, on what they ought to be doing, you know. And the weight thing is one thing, you can kind of fine tune that a little bit easier. Okay, jump smaller than you'd plan on doing, and that's a little bit easier to fine tune. When you get, I think what's trickier is when you have like a progression from doing a push up versus or let's say a pull up to a chest to bar to a bar muscle up. Like there's a huge gap between each of those movements, and this will help us kind of just differentiate those lines, I think, a little bit easier for people.
Yeah, you see an RX person, like people see like, oh, I can kip, and
like
I just want to just go in there, and then 2 months down the road, torn labrum, rotator cuff issues, neck hurts, bad posture all the time, and they never built that base level of strength because they don't. Yeah, exactly.
What do you say about my
As I
posture?
say there, it's like, what are you talking about? Or just because they all see it and it's RX and it's monkey see, monkey do. It looks really sexy. It looks really cool to do a butterfly pull up when I can barely do 10 ring rows, but I'm gonna go over there and I'm gonna jump up there and flail around and hope for the best because it makes me feel better because I did RX. And it's like, it's very, very hard to get people out of that mindset that they have to do these things. No, you don't. Yeah. And exactly that. Our jobs is educate them and push them and move them into their goals that they want to do. Yeah. You want to get to that kipping pull up, you want to get to that butterfly pull up, then we need to start here and move that way.
Cool. So let's talk about like what the new terminology is going to be that we're going to be using. So basically the 3 categories that we're going to be using is fitness, performance, and sport. So at this time of the year, coming off of the Open, coming off a lot of competitive based workouts, you're going to see less differentiating between the 3 tracks. It's going to look a lot like our old scaled RX and RTG, and you're going to wonder, well, why did they change the labels if it's going to be pretty much the same? As we get outside of this competition season, we get closer to the Open for next year or other competitions that people may want to do, and we start ramping up for our performance and sport athletes, you're going to start to see that fitness side is going to be very different than those 2 categories. So it's going to allow us to separate when we kind of ramp things up for a more performance and sport-based athlete to allow the fitness athletes to get what they want to get out of it. Okay, so let's define those categories a little bit deeper. We'll start with fitness. So this is really a person that their number 1 goal is to be healthy and feel good for something outside the gym. Their primary focus is not the accomplishments in here, but how does the accomplishments in here lead to something outside the gym, okay? So there's people that want to lose weight, there's people that want to get stronger. There might be people that have injury history. They might be a little bit older, okay? They're not looking to compete at this, or maybe they did at one point, but they're no longer there anymore. And CrossFit is built as a fitness program. I think in the past, the lines have gotten blurred between the competitive side, the sport of CrossFit, and the fitness side. And this is a chance for us to really have a clear track for people who love the group CrossFit classes for getting healthier and fitter for the rest of their lives.
I think the people who really I see falling into that are every now and then you'll have someone come in and I'm like, oh, you haven't been around in a while. And they're like, well, I was so sore after class that I couldn't pick up my kid. I couldn't chase them around the house. And they're like, and I was hating how sore I was. And I'm like, okay, so that means we need to approach things a little bit different because your goal is not to be sore the rest of the day. Your goal is to feel better the rest of your day. And that means that, okay, we do need to pull things in a little bit, rein them in, so that way when you leave, you are still able to make all of those things a priority. It's not a matter of don't come in at all, it's how do we adjust?
Yep.
And really the description of fitness is the backbone of CrossFit. That's why it was invented, why people started to do it in the first place. I feel almost like when the games came around and the sport of it, which is very, very exciting. People love it. We all love it too. It's a part of the atmosphere now. But it was like Pandora's box opened up a new avenue, and people were like, oh, I need to get good at this. But if you take a second to like really think about why we started this, it probably didn't start with beating other people in workouts or doing these highly technical movements. It was more feeling good, looking good, all that kind of stuff that more pertains to outside the gym. I think it should be the majority, not the minority here.
Yeah, so one example where you can think of this fitness play out in the gym is like the case of a muscle up, okay? Let's say a ring muscle up, which poses maybe a little bit more risk than a bar muscle up. If your number one goal is to be healthier outside the gym, then we believe there's no reason for you to ever work towards a ring or bar muscle up. It's just not necessary. It doesn't fit what you're trying to do. While the risk is not absurd with doing those things, the little bit of risk that's there based on what your goals there are, it's not worth it. You can still get as strong as you want to be, look as good as you want to look, without ever having a ring muscle up in your arsenal. So we can do stuff like ring rows, or we can do stuff like push-ups that are going to have similar movement patterns of pulling and pushing. Whereas in the past, when we had scaled RX and RTG, the thought is the scaled version of a muscle up has to look like a muscle up. It has to look like a transition, or it has to look like a dip, which that really isn't the case anymore in how we're thinking about it. And that's going to give us more flexibility in how we attack scales for some of these higher level gymnastics movements. Handstand push-ups would be another one that kind of falls in that same category.
Right. And I think that just increases the overall stimulus that an everyday person is going to get. They're going to be in here and they're going to be able to choose an avenue that's going to allow them to be better every single day and do something. And exactly, the risk to doing a muscle up, like you said, minimal, but the time requirement, like, couldn't you be doing something more like profitable with your time? Couldn't you be doing something that is more dialed in for what you need to do a pull-up? Keep doing the ring rows, even bent over rows and body weight stuff. Like, do you really need to be spending the time on that when we can get you a much better workout and make you feel better and help you lose weight faster, or just in life, just be healthier by doing these other things and still get an amazing workout without a label, without having to worry about it or worry about pressure about anything else?
Cool, so that kind of like wraps up the fitness component. One thing I'll add to that is I think there's two aspects to each of these categories. One is, what is your goal? What is your why for being here? And if you guys didn't listen to our why podcast from a couple episodes ago, I would highly recommend doing that. But then the second piece of that is the commitment. And those two things have to match up. So you might have a lofty goal, but if you're not willing to commit, then that goal probably has to adjust. So in the case of a fitness athlete, this is probably someone that wants to commit their hour a day, just come in for the workout. Maybe they mobilize or do something a little bit before and after, but it's generally about 60 minutes a day, 3 to 6 times a week. That's about the commitment that we're going to see from this type of person. All right, so that second category, kind of building off that, is going to be the performance category. And this is what we would typically associate with the previous RX. And I think this is where the majority of our athletes are going to fall. There's this balance in the performance category of they want to see gains in the gym. They want to see things improve. They want to work towards the skills like muscle ups and handstand push-ups and seeing their Olympic lifts improve and seeing themselves get stronger and PRing benchmarks. But at the same time, there's a balance of that with the outside world of wanting to be healthier, wanting to push off the nursing home, want to get more physically fit over time, improving flexibility, not getting stiff, not having injuries, and all these different things. So let's talk about performance. What do you guys see with this type of an athlete? How should they approach workouts, or how should they think about this?
Go ahead.
So I think what I think of a lot with a performance standpoint, you talked about ability and goals, but also that idea of commitment. When I think of a performance athlete, I'm also thinking of someone who maybe they are only making it in for an hour a day, but the things they're doing outside of the gym are facilitating what they're doing inside the gym. So this is someone who's making sure they got enough sleep the night before. This is someone who's making sure that they're fueling their body appropriately because they do want to make these gains. And I think that's something that we kind of occasionally run into is someone who has the ability to do heavier movements, higher skilled movements, but hasn't fueled appropriately, and then all of a sudden they're just a wreck after a workout. We're like, what just happened to this person? And they're like, oh yeah, I haven't eaten anything since breakfast this morning. And you're like, okay, we probably needed to adjust something here. So it's something I think of, especially with performance, is are you fueling and treating your body as if you want it to perform its best, both inside and outside the gym?
I think you'll also see a lot of like ex-athletes in this category who at some point in their life have done, and this is not just exclusive to this, but I think a lot of former athletes will fall into this because now they have a life that's evolved beyond their previous sport, but they still have that drive inside where it's like, I want to compete, I want to, it's just embedded in you. Once it's there, it doesn't really go away.
Yeah.
And maybe they don't have the time to be in the sport category, but they have enough time to make the most here, maybe put in an extra hour here and there, get a little bit better at these skills, and kind of just satisfy that appetite that's within the athlete.
Yeah, it's somebody that's got that internal drive to just be able to do things a little bit better or want to do things better. Like you said, the little bit of extra stuff, the occasional extra credit work, the extra mobility, the person that asks you questions like, hey, what can I do, Craig? Like this doesn't feel so good. Like they're the ones that kind of want a little bit more in-depth understanding, that they're not just coming here for an hour to check out. Like where you can come in and just kind of run around the gym mindlessly and do what you're doing and be aware and get a good workout, and then once they leave the doors, it's over with. This is the people that are going to be coming back in tomorrow and be like, hey, those cleans felt really good. Can I improve today in today's class with whatever I'm doing?
Yeah, and with each level, the risk level varies a little bit. Anytime we get out of bed, even if we don't get out of bed, the risk of getting hurt is there no matter what, and we have to accept that. As we move on to trying to get things like handstand push-ups and chest to bar and muscle ups, we take on a little bit more risk than someone who's just a fitness category who's going to just stick with ring rows and push-ups and stuff like that. But this is a person who's saying that risk is worth it to me. Like, it's still worth it to me. I'm not going to do it to the point where I'm really jeopardizing things outside the gym, but every once in a while something might happen. I might be out for a day or two because my back got activated up and it's feeling tight or whatever. And they're willing to take those little bit of risks because they still want to see that improvement. They still want to see that competition side be fulfilled. I always use the example of soccer. People are like, we still play soccer a little bit, and people are like, aren't you afraid you're gonna get hurt? I've heard so many people have gotten hurt. I was like, I'm kind of afraid I'm gonna get hurt, but the thing that scares me most about getting hurt is that I wouldn't be able to play soccer anymore. So if the risk is worth it to you because that's a thing that you love and enjoy, then you got to keep doing that thing, because you only have one life, and if you're just going to say, oh, I'm done with this thing because of that risk, then that's fine. That's where we would lump you more into that fitness category, and you got to own that goal and that level of risk that comes with it. Commitment wise on this person, you guys kind of touched on it already, but this builds a little bit higher than the fitness. So this is a person that is definitely hitting 5 days a week. They're definitely hitting an hour a day. Maybe sometimes coming 6 or even 7 days a week, but what I would stipulate with that is that those 6th and 7th days are usually meant to help you recover to hit the other 5 days even harder. So more is not better in that sense, usually not, and that's a person that's gonna do the things that Katie mentioned outside the gym to be able to hit it hard on those 4 or 5 days. They might do a 2 a day mixed in from time to time, mix in some Beachfit. They'll probably do some of the extra credit that we program in the competitors program, and maybe even do some personal training. This is something that they find a weakness in the gym, and they'll schedule some personal training sessions with a coach to target that weakness to build on their class experience. Third category. So this is the one that's most closely related to our old RTG, which is the category of sport. Who wants to take sport? Craig, let's let you take sport since you've had the most experience probably in the CrossFit sport.
Well, I've definitely fallen into this category. Not so much as of late, but this is kind of where I started. And that's kind of, I feel like a lot of people who get into this, there's that honeymoon phase of CrossFit where everything's new, everything's exciting, you want to do it all. And sometimes you kind of fade away from that. You're like, this is too much, too crazy. And people realize that quickly. And other people kind of stay in that realm. They're like, no, I like the crazy of this. I do feel like if you're in the sport aspect, this should really be like the very minority of these three categories, mainly because it just comes to the dedication, like you're talking about, like how much you're willing to commit. And I think people who may identify themselves as a sport athlete, if they realistically looked at what they're able to give to that, will find that they fall short. And that's just the truth. I think you can't really have as much balance as you would like to have if you're going to be a sport athlete.
Yep.
You can't have the things that you want to do. It's kind of, you just fall outside the norm of society, and that's fine. If that's your goal, then that's definitely something worth pursuing. But one thing I like to tell people too is just like make sure that the juice is worth the squeeze, like you're saying. Like, are you really willing to go down that road for, I don't know, a year, 2 years, 4 years? Put kind of things on hold to an extent. Your family might get mad at you a little bit, like, oh, there goes dad again at the gym for 8 hours, and it just becomes, it's tough. It's tough.
See you,
It's
Pops.
tough. You kind of put your career on hold, and there's all sorts of things that go into it, but it's tricky. And then obviously the injury becomes a way higher risk, I feel like, at this level, because you're trying to push that limit way more frequently than you would in the previous two.
I think you have to own that there's a clear sacrifice being made outside the gym. Doesn't mean that you're not healthier than someone who's just sitting on the couch. Like, you're definitely a leg up on that person, but compared to probably a more performance-based athlete that is prioritizing their overall health, their stress, their sleep, and all that, there's probably going to be a clear sacrifice, whether it be stuff at work, family, other priorities that you have in order to commit and excel. And this isn't not even just for, like, we're not talking about even regionals or games level, but to commit and beat the field every year. Like, I would say for a sport athlete, this is someone that definitively needs to see that open number go better from last year. Like, if they were 500th in the open, they need to see it at 300 this year to really feel like it was a successful season for them. And it takes a lot of commitment because there's a new rush of athletes, younger, more experienced athletes that are coming in to beat you every year. So what else you got? What else do you guys see?
Yeah, like, are you willing to go down that rabbit hole? Like, do you really want to push the envelope that much? Do you want to assume those risks? And then the overall question we always ask ourselves is the why. Like, why are you here? Why do you want to do that? Why do you want to go to those local competitions and go out there like we talk about all the time? Are you training for that reason? Are you training in the hopes of going there? And I think the sport athlete is just not even so much the open for next year, is 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, because that's what you're in the sport. Your life is going to be consumed by those little goals, and it takes a long time to get there. So not necessarily are you willing to commit for 6 months of sport, are you willing to commit for 2, 3, 4, the longevity of it? Are you willing to go through that grind all the time? And like you said, put your life on hold, pause these things, push the envelope, push the weights, do the extra work, the extra mobility, measuring the macros, the sleep. Like, it's tough. It's very hard to understand where those goals are going to be. And then also being willing to understand that, it's not going to be instant success. You're going to have to keep grinding and grinding and grinding. And it's like, so is the wear and tear in the gym of doing those muscle ups or that extra 20 pounds really going to be worth it?
Yeah, and that's the other thing is that it's not only putting in the time total, you have to be smart about it. Like, to be a good sport athlete, you have to be well-rounded. So you got to be willing to do the things that you suck at, that you hate doing, that you really are just like dreading to do, and you still got to be willing to put in those hours. And so I think that's another thing to consider.
Yeah, so what that might look like in a class environment is like things like pistols is a big one that comes to mind. Like, pistols, we rarely ever program in a class environment for our general population, even performance included, because we just haven't really seen it even in the open to make it worthwhile to program. So, if you're a sport athlete though, that's something that you should be doing probably a couple times a month, especially if that's a mobility limitation for you. So you're gonna see stuff like that show up in sport, where we might be just doing lunges or even just a basic squat with our fitness and performance athletes, because those sport athletes need exposure to that type of movement.
Right, I think a lot of it's based off your needs too, exactly with that. Like, the pistol is a great example. We did those lateral box step-ups the other day, which everybody at some point in time in their life is going to have to step on that little bump or that little wall and do a single leg drive and stand up, or do a lunge or reach for this or pick that up. Like, how often are you just randomly out, unless you're parkouring every other day, and just being like, bam, pistol, single leg squat. Like, I mean, it's just
Do it for the gram.
Yeah, exactly. If you're not posting videos doing sick tricks all the time,
You don't do a one-legged squat to the toilet?
you know, from time to time. I like to do the hop into the tub, you know, and just go there. But it's like, you know, is it really necessary? Again, it just all falls back to it. Like, do you really need to do those things when there's so many other ways to get a better stimulus, so many other ways to get a better workout, and just in general feel good and be healthier?
Yeah.
You know.
So,
Go ahead. Sorry, there's just kind of a gray. I was just thinking too. Is some of these skills are kind of cool individually, like being able to walk in your hands. Like handstand walking is a very cool independent goal, and that doesn't necessarily mean you need to be committing yourself to what we would require from a sport athlete. You know, you can dedicate 20 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, twice a week to working on handstands and maybe doing mobility, so you can do that, and then that's just something cool you can bang out at a party one day. You'll probably be, probably people won't be impressed, they'll be disgusted. You can do it. You know, something you can do, or just getting that muscle up. Those goals I think are important to people because they're benchmarks and just tiers that people like to hit. So kind of a gray.
And yeah, there's a lot of gray in here. I mean, there's going to be definitely lines blurred. There's going to be times where pistols show up for a performance athlete and handstand walk shows up for a performance athlete. They would never show up for a fitness athlete, so that would be a clearer line in there. But there's definitely a lot of gray, and there's times where you might kind of float a little bit back and forth the same way you floated back and forth between scale and RX or RX and RTG. But this is just a chance for us to kind of put these categories next to each other as different paths based on your level, your goals and your commitment level, rather than saying that RX is better than scaled and RTG is better than RX. This is a chance to show you how it may fit what you're trying to get out of this. And then just to wrap up that sport category, what we kind of see as a minimum commitment on that one is 90 minutes per day and 6 to 7 days a week. And I would say that's your training commitment. And one good rule of thumb from a training perspective is for every minute or hour you spend in training, you should spend about half that in recovery. So if you're spending 90 minutes in training, you have another about 45 minutes of recovery-based stuff. Could be mobilization, massage. What are some other things? Sleep, meditation.
Even just
hopefully you're getting more than like half. Like if you're training for 2 hours, hopefully you're getting more than an hour of sleep.
Yes.
But maybe an extra hour of sleep.
Right, and even just the extra time in the gym for recovery, like that 45 minutes could be the mobility / cool down on the assault bike or the row or all these other things, which is still taking you away from those other things in your life because you're going to be here and stretch out and everything else. And those other things, you have to go away to do them. If you're going to go to the massage or you're going to go to the cool zone or, you know, the float stuff and everything else, or even just to relax and get that recovery time, it's going to take away from something else because you're literally doing nothing else but sort of being selfish to take care of your own body because you need that. And it's just going to demand a lot from everything else.
So let's go through some of the questions that come up. Some of these came up in our coaches meeting when we were debating this topic. But this one's my favorite question, which is, are you just changing the terminology to make people feel better about themselves? I think this is something that people think that, you know, we're removing kind of the, you know, the reward system or the competitive side of CrossFit. And we don't feel that's the case. What are your thoughts on that kind of question or that point?
I think it does a really good job of, again, we talked about that education aspect, but really having people ask themselves, why am I here? What am I trying to get out of this? Because you'll have people who every now and then you'll hear them and you're like, oh, I just feel so beat up from CrossFit. I just feel this and I just feel that. And I'm like, okay, so what did you do this week? And I'm like, well, I did handstand push-ups and muscle ups and my hands ripped and this and that. I'm like, okay, so why did you go do more chest to bar pull-ups today after your hands ripped?
Right.
And they're like, well, that was what the workout was. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure there was an option where you didn't have to do that, or you could have asked a coach for an option. And I think that education piece of, okay, this is more related to what is your purpose for being here as opposed to what's going to fuel your ego the most today. Yep. And it can kind of check the egos a little bit.
Right. I think there's enough ego inherent into this atmosphere, and I think the labels were only feeding that more. Even, again, I see it more with new people coming in because they don't have 5 years of CrossFit experience and all these different things to draw on, all these different experiences to draw on. For them, it's brand new, and we take that for granted. And it started to feel insincere to have an RX label as prescribed, or I felt really insincere saying RTG because no one was going to the games that's coming to our classes, regularly enough, and I think this is way more appropriate. So.
And I love, we nailed this in the beginning, but just to reiterate, I love how it kind of forges 3 different paths now. Like, what's your goal? Like, maybe go down that road versus where it was kind of 3 parallel paths, just one was greater than the next, was greater than the next. I like how it's kind of spawning off into different directions. I think that's very just progressive of CrossFit these days. CrossFit's a thing where it's been around for so long, old habits just definitely die hard, and you can get stuck in the same things that you've heard for 7-8 years, but like everything else, it evolves. So I like that we're kind of staying ahead of the curve.
Right, and then getting rid of the RX and scale, the expectations of having to do something and everything else. Like Katie just said, like you just did all this stuff in the weekend, and then you saw, because that's what the workout was, I had to do that. Well, going back to the education, it allows athletes and clients to almost problem solve for themselves now. Like we always wanted almost lead the horse to the water, but then have them figure it out the next time, and how do they get there, and where do I want to go, and more avenues for just better options to like understand their body and know themselves, like what is going to get me the best way to go, which route can I go. And like you said, the lines might blur from time to time, and even those trails, they might be going like this and they might cross over, but I'm going to go that way tomorrow and come this way. But that's the journey you're on now. Whatever's best going to suit you. With these options now, it gives you a lot more access to that.
Yeah, where I would like to see people use this to empower them is specifically with choosing weights that don't look like the 3 weights that we write on the board, because we're still going to have those weights as a point of reference for now. We have no plans to remove what you would normally know as an RX weight. Like Fran, you're still going to see 95, 65 on the board, but I think there's where a scaled weight might be 65, 45 in the past for Fran, very few people are putting 75 on the bar. Very few people are putting 80 on the bar, 85. Like no one's choosing that in between because of that label. I think that label kind of pulls you to one level or the other. And we know a 30-pound jump on that type of workout is huge. And I think this would be cool to see more people feel empowered to go 5 pounds below the performance standard, 10 pounds below. Like you're still in the ballpark of what we're trying to get stimulus-wise, but you're choosing a more appropriate weight for you.
Yeah, there's no pressure. I mean, you're gonna do what you need to do and to get the best workout. And it's like if you've never, and as a CrossFit athlete, if you've never even taken like, let's say a BeachFit class, the other program we have, they don't write like anything on the board.
Yeah.
Here's your workout, there's 0 weights, there's no, there's maybe a scaled option per se, or just another option. And it's really, it's written in the workout. If it's box jumps / step ups, because it's not a step down, it's not a downgrade in your workout, it's just what's going to best suit you. Like there's kettlebell swings on there, it just says 30 kettlebell swings. You have to problem solve, you have to figure out what you can manage, and it allows you to be a lot more open to other things. I don't have to swing that 70 every single time it says RTG and that's on the board because that's what they said. They're not telling you anything over there, and now you have to figure it out. And I think it's really cool to see it over here where there's a lot more options to play with and do things and just experience better workouts to get yourself better and understand what you're doing.
And
Go ahead.
I think you see people, especially over there, you see people push themselves in a very different way, because over here you will almost never see a female athlete hop on a 24-inch box. You go over there, every single time there's box jumps, there's women who flip right up to the 24-inch box, and they're like, and I'm like, most girls next door only ever use 20, and they're like, okay, this feels good today. And they're just gonna push themselves, and they're like, okay, well 20 was feeling easy, so I'm gonna go try this one, this workout. And there's no shame or anything if all of a sudden, okay, partway through the workout, they're like, it doesn't feel so good anymore. I'm gonna do step ups, or I'm gonna switch to something else.
Right, and there's still those clear distinctions. There's no barbell work over there. There are dumbbells, kettlebells, different feel to that class set. That's a completely different monster and a whole separate program. They look similar because we hold same objects, But over here, you know, there's going to be those ring muscle ups. You're not going to see it over there. So there's going to be
Strength work.
Yeah,
A lot
more strength work over here, and a lot like different things. They have a mindset of, you know, being fit for the beach and running and doing more aerobic stuff, where we're going to dabble in a lot more phases and be more variance and kind of moving around there, which is always great. So you get the best of both worlds. So no, at all, it's not going to be like Beach Fit. You're going to just get more education and more options to be a better person, to be a better athlete, to be a better father, you know, husband, wife, daughter, whatever you are outside of this gym, just in life in general.
I also think you can still be a competitive person and still fall into the fitness category.
Yeah.
You can be a beach fitter and still be a competitive person. You can still care about how you do on the workout. That's totally fine. I think anyone who walks through these doors in general has, you know, a part of them has that crazy switch, which helps fuel us. You gotta have it, right? Otherwise, you just go to the Gold's Gym down the street, pay your $30 a month.
No gym at all.
Or don't go to the gym, right? Yeah. So even, sounds so elitist to say, but even if you're here all period, you're in a higher echelon than most people are probably ever gonna be as far as fitness goes, I would say.
Cool. So last thing I want to wrap up with is just that you will see these different categories vary at different times of the year. So kind of touched on it earlier, but right now it's kind of like the off season for us. So all of it looks more fitness oriented right now, and there's less differentiation for sport because we don't, even our sport athletes don't need to be doing high volume of ring muscle ups 12 months out of the year, right? They need some downtime. They need to go back to the basics, which we talked a lot about in our tempo work podcast. But as we get closer to the open, and let's say the 3 months leading up to next year's open, when we want to program a lot of chest to bar pull-ups, a lot of muscle ups, a lot of handstand push-ups, pistols, handstand walking, we can do that for the sport, you know, a lot for the sport, dabble in it for the performance side, and then when it comes to the fitness side, they don't have to feel like they're getting dragged up into this very, you know, a little more risk involved, a little more injury risk, a little bit more volume, a little bit more intensity. Like, yes, they're still going to get varying levels throughout the year, but it's not going to be to that degree that they're dragged up with our competitive athletes just because the Open's coming around the corner.
Right, and that's where you'll really see those paths, like, you know, be diverse. And right now, everybody, this is the time of year, and that's why it's not going to look so much like, it's going to look the same pretty much across the board, because everybody, no matter what path you choose, needs strength work, needs tempo work, needs these small little, you know, aerobic power put-outs, you know, for these workouts that we're doing and the way we are. But 3 months, 4 months down the road, like you said, before the Open, there's people that come in here all the time and say it. They're like, man, this is getting a little intense. I don't like it, and, you know, and then you start seeing them fall off. You know, I'm only going to come 3 days a week because I am beat up because we upped the volume for chest to bar. Well, now, no, we're going to cater more to you, and we're going to serve you better as coaches, as owners, as just friends in general, because now you get to get your workout 5 days a week, every single time, and feel awesome. And let the crazy sort it out over there. They can go do their chest to bar. I'm going to do my pull-ups today. I'm going to do my ring rows. I'm going to jump on this box, and I'm going to get a great workout because this workout is for me, and this is what I want to do for that day.
Cool. Anything else?
It sums it up.
All right, guys.
Can we shred the shirt?
Thanks for joining us.